And then are you still doing more healthcare stuff at AEI?
Yes, I'm still doing healthcare at AEI. But one of the things that's really re-energized me, in the new opportunities at AEI, is we do a lot of decarbonization work and planning for, electrification and eliminating, trying to get off of fossil fuels. So a lot of academic higher ed campus work that they're asking us to take a look at this and what is our plan in the next 20 years if we want to be completely off of fossil fuels by 2050. What's
Mm-hmm.
the mechanical and electrical engineering, what's the pathways that we need to do to get to that eventually. And it's been fascinating as an electrical engineer, as a geeky electrical engineer, when some of the electrical load is some of the things that I'm doing are the growth, or the load growth is 4 times what it is now. And the challenges that brings upon not only to the existing equipment within those campuses, but even on the grid. Is
Mm-hmm.
the electrical utility capable of doing that? Can they deliver that amount of increased electrical power? So it's been a lot of fun. It feels a little bit like because my healthcare is in healthcare. Right, my background's in healthcare. So sometimes it feels like I'm faking it to make it, but I do have enough of a background where I'm kind of surprising myself with some of the things I'm saying. Some of the foundation I have in my career in electrical engineering, it does translate. And I'll say something, and I'll see some other people across the room kind of nodding their heads. It's like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
doing
It's
something
a,
right.
it's a lot like testing out different project types. Like I haven't really done S&T and jumping in and doing a lab, and it is a completely different animal. And I've done years of healthcare experience. And no matter how many years of experience, when you change project types, it's like, crap, what's going on now? And you feel like an intern
Yeah,
again and asking really silly questions.
I've
Like,
got to
this may
relearn
sound
this.
dumb.
And
I feel like I
well,
should know this.
and it's been something I kind of knew this leaving a firm I've been with for 20 years. But going to people had told me about this a lot. But you go to a new firm and you do have to prove yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of times the first couple of months and even still where just researching things, it's like I'm expected to know this based on the number of gray hairs that I have and my experience. So I'm going to make sure I'm prepared, or at least have an understanding of what some of these new terminologies are, the new phrases that you hear. So yeah, it's more work, but it's at a part in my career that it's super exciting, and I'm really enjoying kind of the transition and the opportunity to learn some new things.
Yeah. Now, is your work going to expand into the bigger grid system? Or is the decarbonization more staying at like the university level and then you pass on? How's that work?
I mean, most of it is, as far as designing things for the electrical, like the utility distribution. Is that kind of
Mm-hmm.
the question?
Yeah, like the bigger grid. Like if something's going to be bigger loads, like I've had a project, very small scale, where the utility company just assumed there was no more room on this street to add any more buildings, and I was adding a whole spay and neuter clinic, and nobody circled back to the utility company, and they had to upgrade everything. So when you think of it from a bigger university standpoint, and the university needs to max out capacity or prepare for future growth, does that chain of events on the utility side happen with you guys, or is that kind of a hands off at that point? Now utility company, you got to do these changes?
I mean, we're not designing it, but in order for this endeavor to be successful, we do have to drive from the back seat of the bus every once in a while too, and arm them with the information they need to upgrade their system to. So, and this is part of me just being curious. And we can, maybe if you ask me a question about what I mean by curious and that quality, that might be a different topic, maybe a different podcast session altogether, Caitlin. But I super curious about it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm working on a campus in the state of Michigan, and they have their grid is pretty poor actually. And so just being curious, I went through and did a study on it, and it's in Wikipedia, so you can look at it. But where are there generating sources in the state of Michigan? And then kind of I went through and divided it out by, is that a natural gas generating source? Is it oil? Is it coal? Is it solar? wind, and kind of looking at those and seeing where those are in the state of Michigan, and then how we're going to get that power, that energy production to the campus that we're at. And, having a little bit of an understanding of that, so that I can start to guide the utility engineers to say, hey, you need to do this, or have you thought about this? And basically this substation that is 50 megawatts right now, it may need to be 200 megawatts in the future. And, you need 2 or 3 of these. It's at a completely different scale that I've been thinking about based on my past experience. But I also think, in general, I think it's a different scale than anybody's been thinking about, and especially the utilities. I don't think they're prepared for some of the things that are coming. Many of them are not prepared for some of the things that are coming down the pike.
Yeah, because I think down in like Texas, where their grid tends to go out of whack all the time and they can't keep up, or California, their grid can't keep, like, they're making very big initiatives to push electricity and reduce gases, but then the grid is equally not getting updated as quickly as the codes are changing and governments issuing things. So that's why I'm not an electrical engineer, but I'm fascinated with, like, okay, if you make this, what else do you need to actually upgrade? Or transportation wise, there's an area in Pittsburgh that's north of me that they just built homes all over the place, but they didn't upgrade the main road to get to the highway to commute down to the city. So it's still like 1 lane each direction, and it could be 3 lanes each direction with the amount of homes they built. And it's like, you just worried about building these homes and making the money, but you didn't take the time to talk to the community to, hey, this is all happening. Let's also start upgrading this. So now you have all this traffic way outside the city in a different county. And I'm like, that's like bigger things that I'm always like, I wish we could have a bigger impact to help everybody.
I mean, I think that's a similar thought process that I've had, and it's beyond just the basics of electrical engineering and kind of a bigger picture. And I think all the climate change things that people are talking about, and I think it's important that we as designers are looking at that and doing what we can as an industry to address it. But I also think one of the things that we could do if we don't look at some of those things, and resiliency is a big part of electrical engineering. And I think there's a lot of damage we can do if we don't consider some of that resiliency in the electrical grid. I kind of joke, the easiest way to be energy efficient and to lessen any of the emissions from the fossil fuels that are on there is to turn the lights out, right? And not use energy, And so if we're not resilient and we're putting too much strain on the grid that it shuts down, we're going to be really, really efficient, and really, there's less emissions, but nobody's going to be happy. So, and I think from a social campaign thing, if this isn't successful with the first big endeavors we do, and they see how, that they go through this and they've completely decarbonized and they've electrified the buildings, but it's not reliable, that bad press could damage efforts going forward. So I think it's really important that we're careful about that, and we do consider resiliency going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Check out the full discussion from this bite of advice here. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more mentorDINO content.